Medicine at Midnight, the Foo Fighters on the iHeartRadio album release party. When I hear that song, it has the guitars that come underneath are very like Saved by Zero by the Fix, and it just you know what I'm talking about? The guitar underneath.
Of course, yes.
And when I heard that, I was like, damn, they went 80s on us. That's a very 80s. And then you put the bass line in, and the bass has got some like Pink Floyd elements to it. So but it's still straight ahead Foo Fighters somehow. Does that come through production? Does that come through the producer? Is that accidental? Because all this stuff that you're talking about sounds accidental. We played ABBA.
I mean, it's weird. It's almost like photosynthesis, right? So you grow up listening to and loving your favorite artists, and then like aspects of their music, like they kind of become a part of you, whether it's a lyric or it's a melody or whatever. Like your life has changed, and you're changed as a person by music. And so as a musician, ultimately you're influenced by these things as well. So they sort of shape the way that you listen to everything. Right? From the beginning, when I started listening to Beatles records when I was a little kid, that became like my foundation for like reference or perspective. I would think like, oh, that's a cool song, or that's a cool chord, like, but it's not as cool as the Beatles. So everything that you do from then on, you sort of base it on those influences. So when you go in to record something, it's almost inevitable that they just come out of you like sweat. Like they just come out, and it's almost unconscious in a way. They're just like coming out, and then you hear it and you're like, oh my God, wait, does that sound like Let's Dance by David Bowie? It does, kind of, yeah. And so, but it's in a way, it's like, that's kind of what the lineage of music is supposed to do. I mean, talking about the Beatles, like Paul McCartney has these vocal things that he got from Little Richard, this little like 3-part trill. It's like things like that. And it's the evolution and progression of music that rather than just like cut those things off and stop them, let them live on, like let them like take that next mutation, that next step. And that's what, obviously that's what happens with us. And they can come from many different places. It's like, wow, that's, I wish Lemmy from Motorhead were still around so he could hear No Son of Mine. Cause he'd be like, yeah, that's a good one. Like that kind of thing. You think,
you and I have
cool.
The same Lemmy experience. Mine isn't a strip club. Mine is, I used to live off of Doheny in West Hollywood. So I, of course, lived at the Rainbow. And Lemmy, I don't know how much you get to go to bars because you've been famous since you were 2, but Lemmy was always there. And it would freak me out because I'm a Motorhead fan, and I'd be sitting at the bar and Lemmy would be 3 feet away next to that poker machine. And your experience is the same, next to a poker machine at a strip bar. And you went up and spoke with him.
I did. I mean, listen, this is one of the reasons why I always had so much respect for Lemmy. One of the reasons. Lemmy was a living, breathing, walking, and talking embodiment of rock and roll, but entirely human and entirely approachable. And as much as he seemed like, a space cowboy from hell or whatever, he was a really generous and wonderful dude that was so fun to talk to. And he would, he'd hang with anybody.
And obviously you're an 80s kid that grew up during Reagan and Russia was going to get us. I feel like that really rubbed off. I'm thinking of Prince, Ronnie Tuck to Russia. I don't know why, but that's what comes to mind when I hear that. Then this happens where your daughter, she's fearful of war, and take it from there.
So one day I was taking my daughter Harper, who's 11 years old, to school. And as we were driving, she turns to me and she's like, Dad, is there going to be a war? And it kind of came out of nowhere. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Why? What makes you say that? And I think that she had seen something on the news with, North Korea or the Ukraine or Russia or something like that. But what struck me was it immediately brought me back to when I was her age. I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. I was within 6 miles of the Pentagon, just like right close to the city. And in the early 80s, there was a lot of like international tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. So I was always afraid that there was going to be a war because I thought, all right, well, I live outside of Washington, D.C. This is the first place they're going to attack. So I'm not going to be able to grow up and get a driver's license. I'm not going to be able to grow up and like, you know, be legally allowed to like buy a beer. Like I have nothing to look forward to. And that's the way I felt when I was a kid. I'd have these nightmares of like missiles in the sky and like soldiers in my backyard and stuff. So when she said that, it immediately brought me back to that feeling. And I thought, you know, I thought it was heartbreaking to think that any kid lives their life under this kind of like hopeless cloud of fear. Because at that time, at that age, that should be like your most imaginative, hopeful age, that you like you're going to grow up and be someone or be something, and to have that kind of taken away from you by that fear, like it really upset me. So I dropped her off at school and I went to the studio and wrote that song that day. So yeah, I mean, you know, there's the line in the song where it says, there's got to be more to this than that. I truly believe. And I've always been a somewhat hopeful person. And I think to lose that hope, like to see the light at the end of the tunnel just go out it's heartbreaking. So I wrote it for her.
Well, you did mention your daughter, Violet. How insanely cool is that your daughter's on one of your songs, man?
Well, like I said, okay, so how jamming with all of these people that I love is always like coincidental or accidental. Violet would come home from school and she'd just come over to the house where we recorded the record. We didn't do it in a studio. It was at some funky old house. And she'd be like sit on the couch and she'd like do her homework and, you know, whatever. And our producer, Greg Kirsten, who's a really close friend of ours for years, he was like, hey, Violet, do you want to sing a backup vocal? And she's like, okay. So she went in, and just so y'all know, Violet has an incredible voice, right? And she has since she was like little. But now that she's a teenager, I mean, she sings like Etta James, man. Like she sings like she's got the Amy Winehouse thing. She's got the Adele thing. But mostly she just sings from here, you know, it's amazing. So she goes in and is like, first she does that part in the chorus is like, ooh. When I hear it, it always makes me smile because she did like 2 takes and was perfect and it was awesome. And then, you know, then she would come by after school and like Greg would say, hey, you want to do a backup vocal on blah, blah, blah. She'd be like, okay. So she's all over the record. And I thought like, oh, how cute and informal and sweet and whatever, until my accountant calls and says, hey, I have this check for Violet. Where should I put it? I was like, for what? And she goes, for singing on the record. I'm like, she got paid? And she's like, yeah, we got to pay. If you play on the record, you got to get paid. And I looked at this check and I was like, that is not going in her bank account right now. That is not, she doesn't get that much money right now. That's going in my account. And then I'll give it to her when she's 18.
Does she know about this, by the way?
Absolutely. I told her, I was like, you should have seen the check you got today. But you
Dad
won't
sucks.
until you're 18 years old.
Dad sucks. Give her the money, man. Come on.
Believe me. Listen, we know what happens when you give kids lots of money.
How scary is this, though, man? I mean, honestly, you guys will hear you'll hear everything tonight, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It must be hard knowing you've got someone with that blood running through her veins. You think that's going to be part of her road, or is it too early to tell?
I mean, you know, I got lucky because I was raised by 2 parents that let me listen to anything I wanted to listen to. So my father was like an accomplished classical music. He was a flautist and he loved jazz. My mother was like, she sang in a cappella groups and loved, you know, Manhattan Transfer and Broadway stuff and stuff like that. 70s AM radio. Meanwhile, I'm listening to like satanic death metal and like crazy subversive political punk rock in the early 80s. But no one ever told me like, hey, don't do that. They were always, you know, I'm sure they heard it, but they never got in my way, you know? And so in that same respect, like, I'm just kind of letting Violet like figure her deal out. And I'm not involved. I'm not like stage dad. You know, I'm not like get closer to the mic. No, you got to say like, you got to breathe from here. Use your diaphragm, like stuff like that. I'm not that guy. She could do whatever she wants to do musically. The biggest part of being a musician, of course, you have to like respect the craft. But the biggest part is the determination and the fire to do it. Like if a lot of it comes from here. A lot of it's here, a lot of it's there, but a lot of it is from here. So like mediocre musicians like me can sit here with you guys and talk about our 10th album after 25 years.
I'm really surprised you didn't start that as the first single. To me, it's almost, I wouldn't say obvious, because it's not typical. It's, background vocals on a Foo Fighters record. It's off the beaten path a little bit as Foos goes, and it's obvious. It's just so, one listen, you're like, oh, I'm all in on this song.
It's funny because we always have that conversation when we're done making a record. It's like, okay, how do we present this to everyone? Like, maybe don't put out singles and just put the whole thing out like all at once, because I'm into making albums. Like, I love writing songs, but like, I like writing set lists at shows. I like writing stories. I like sequencing albums because they're meant to like engage the listener and take you on this ride from beginning to end. It's one of the reasons why this album is 36 minutes long. It's like, I want it to be a roller coaster that you don't have to stay on for 3.5 hours,
9 tracks, and it is quick rock and roll, in and out. There's Shame would be the mid-tempo song, I guess, and the Birds song, I would say, is the closest to a ballad you would get, but the rest of the album is pedal to the metal. It's rock. It's Foo Fighters, straight up, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried before to not sound like the Foo Fighters. Like, intentionally. Like, in both directions. Where we're like, all right, oh man, I've got this riff. It's like the heaviest thing we've ever done. Like, and we'll record it. We're like, oh my God, it's so heavy. This is amazing. We've never done anything this heavy. And then I'll sing over it like, la, 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 la. And then all of a sudden it sounds like the Foo Fighters. And we're like, God damn it. Like, God, we were so close. And so
No Son of Mine is a good example. I mean, No Son of Mine could almost be a Motorhead Rammstein kind of record. It's hard, but then you start singing, you're like, well, it's a Foo Fighters song,
I know. There's nothing I can do.
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to Dave for doing this and getting this record out finally. As you can tell, I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan. I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan, so this is it's awesome to get to do this, and thank you for everybody listening and watching. What do you want us to know about it? Give us a parting thought. Medicine at Midnight. What do you want to stick?
I think the album speaks for itself.
Oh, God,
I don't know. I mean, look, when we made this record, the idea was that you hear it and then you come see it. Every week I get a call from my manager and he's like, hey, we got an offer to play blah, blah, blah. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. I want to do it. Can we do it? He's like, want me to book it? I'm like, yeah, book it. If it goes down, like if it happens, I'm the first one there, But until then, just, have to have hope and think that, each day we're one day closer to it actually happening. And when it does happen, oh my God, like, how good that's going to feel? How good it's going to feel when it's like the house lights go down and then we walk on stage and the first thing I do is tell our lighting guy, actually turn the house lights back up. And then we just sit and stare at each other for like 3 minutes. And then we launch into, a song and we all sing that together. And it's like, everyone's got the chills and it was fucking crying and you're like, rah, rah, rah. And then we play for another 2.5 hours. Like, it's going to be so fucking awesome. But until then, you just have to have hope and think like, all right, it's coming. It's happening. So I'm here, man. I'm on call. My beeper's on. Just hit it.
The great Dave Grohl. Well, Dave, this was awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It's a phenomenal album. Everybody get it, stream it, love it. And thank you all for listening. We do appreciate it. My name is Chris Booker, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you. Everyone stay safe. We'll see you soon.
Bye, Dave Grohl.
I was too nervous to unmute, but thank you, Dave.
Okay, everybody unmute.
Everybody unmute. Come on.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Did you like that video? You can check out more over here. And don't forget to subscribe to iHeart right here. And if you're already a longtime fan, make sure you ring the bell down below so you don't miss a single video. Bye guys.